Today on episode 112 of Deep Dives, Destry is, I forgot all of a sudden what Destry is. It Earth, Wind,
Blood,
and Fire?
Sweat,
Blood,
and
Sweat, and
Tears.
I was going Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Mm-hmm.
That's Blood, Sweat, and Tears is what Destry is going to talk about. I think that's music related.
Yep.
And then we'll meander on back to Jude as well today on the Deep Dives.
Episode 112, Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
Yep. Remember when we did episode 100? It seems like a long time ago, or not too long ago.
I know.
But it was 12 weeks ago.
It was right after Thanksgiving? Or was it? No, it was a New Year, right?
Yeah,
New Year's.
Yeah,
New Year.
New Year's.
We did that on purpose to try to
Yep.
get 101 in the first episode in January.
Yeah.
So, Josh has just come back from quite the venture. He went on vacation down in Florida. It was a lot of fun down there, was it, Josh?
Right. Vacation.
Tell us real quickly about, when you left, what you did when you came back. This is not uncommon for Josh to do this.
So yeah, we had to. We're recording on a Saturday today because
Yep.
we couldn't record Thursday. The reason was because with my job doing engineering, I get involved in a lot of litigation cases as an expert witness, and usually that revolves around some type of hurricane related thing, which is what this was.
This was years ago. This is
Yeah.
the hurricane. Well, how many years ago was this?
These litigation cases last for years.
Yeah.
Because of how the insurance companies and the homeowners are arguing with each other and not agreeing on what damages need to be
Damage was
fixed
due to
or
wind.
for.
Damage
Yeah.
was due to water.
Yeah,
whatever.
or if the wind even caused it, or was it a construction defect or whatever. And so I get called in as an independent third party to give my opinion about these things. And so I got asked last Monday if I could fly down to Florida real quick for an inspection. This one house that's in the middle of litigation.
South Florida.
Yeah. So I flew into Fort Myers and had an hour drive north of there to where the house actually was. And these are usually really quick trips. Sometimes I fly out in the morning and fly back in the evening. Other times I'll fly out I'll fly out on day one and fly back in the morning of day two. And that's how this was. I ended up leaving the house at 3 a.m. on Thursday.
After teaching the night before with me.
Yep. Yeah. So if you really want to start earlier, like it's been a nonstop. If we did start Wednesday, work a full day Wednesday, and immediately at 5 o'clock on Wednesday, I stop whatever I'm doing, finish up my lesson plan for our Bible study,
Yep.
our small
6:30.
group at church at 6:30, and then I go and I'm at church from 6:30 to 7:30, and then from there I grab dinner, go home, and go to sleep. Well, this time I had to get up at 3 o'clock the next morning to go catch a plane to fly down fly up to Charlotte and then down to
That's
Fort
right.
Myers because
Charlotte.
it was a connecting flight. So get up at 3, get to the airport about 4:20-ish or whatever, because I got up at 3, finished packing, got to the airport about 4:20, caught the plane up to Charlotte, then the next one down to Fort Myers, hit the ground around 11 o'clock ish, and my inspection was an hour away, and it was at 12, so I was about 30 minutes late to that because I still had to get my bags, get my rental car, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm on there, and I'm texting or talking with the attorney like, hey, I'm going to be about 30 minutes late, but I'm on my way. Do that thing. I'm there for about 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. Then check into the hotel. I have a follow-up call with the attorney, and immediately my body starts reminding me, like, you haven't eaten since 4:30 this morning at the airport. This little Chick-fil-A breakfast. And so I begin to die, and so I went to a pizza shop, just down the road from the hotel, grabbed pizza, a side of wings, some drink, some root beer, head back to the hotel, and I just like mow down on that thing. And I get about halfway through the whole thing, and my body's like, okay, you've been fed. You're going to turn off now. And in the chair in front of the pizza, I'm just like,
You just fell asleep.
I just fell asleep. I was out.
Shut off.
I don't remember how long I was out, but wasn't too long. But I just remember, like waking up, like, what's going on?
Where am I?
Yeah.
Am I done eating?
And so I had to return some phone calls and stuff that I didn't do because I fell asleep. And then it was like, well, I need to go to bed. So, I milled around a little bit and went to bed. And I had to wake up at 3 o'clock the next morning again because I had an hour drive back to the airport to catch because I'd get to the airport. I had to get there a little bit early because everyone's saying the TSA lines are really slow. So I get there about 4:30 ish. Go through the security lines down in Fort Myers and catch a plane about 6 o'clock. Fly up to Charlotte. Fly back to Pensacola. Immediately when I hit the ground 30 minutes before I'm supposed to be on a Zoom call.
Oh my gosh.
With some other people at the University of West Florida that were all working on a research project together in computational fluid dynamics and wind-related stuff. And so I hit the ground. I immediately text them like, hey, I just hit the ground. Just got to grab my bags, get to the office. I might be a few minutes late. I was about 10, 15 minutes late.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, so I get to the office, set my suitcase down right next to my desk, flip up the webcam, log in, and I'm immediately in this meeting with like four professors and me. I'm the only outside guy, and they're like, "Hey, Josh, can you tell us how you calculate wind pressures when you're doing design?" So I'm like, "Okay, sure." So I'm starting to screenshot stuff and go through like Bernoulli's equation and how wind tunnel tests are done and all this kind of stuff because these are professors. They're usually in the classroom all day.
Okay.
They're not applying this to design projects in the real world, and that's kind of what this research project is like the intersection of theory and practical application.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons I'm involved in it. But so we get done with that that goes on for about an hour and a half, and I'm answering questions from these professors, and immediately I get done from that, and I have to answer phone calls from people who've been calling me while I've been in the air or while I've been in this meeting, and so I spend the next like 3 hours straight just on the phone. And it ends up with, at the end of the day, I spend 30 minutes helping my dad set up a Facebook page, a Facebook account.
Of all things. Oh,
right?
my gosh.
And so by this time, it's about 5:30. I head home. I'm like, hey, want me to pick up some dinner? So I went to the grocery store, picked up some ingredients for dinner, went home, helped cook dinner. We sit down, we eat. My daughter's telling me stories about her week and what's going on with work, and my wife is doing the same thing. And about halfway into it, my body just shuts down.
Time to go off again.
Time to go offline. And then I got woken up about 3 this morning because I didn't know my alarms were still set for 3, and they're waking my wife up. It's like, turn them off. I don't remember any of this.
You don't.
But
She reminds you in the morning.
I woke up when my alarms went off to come here and record this.
Wow.
So that's been my last couple of days. It's just been nonstop,
Man.
like no breaks in between, all that kind of stuff. So it's nice to just be able to sit here and not have any responsibilities
And
for the
chill.
moment.
Good. You going to be able to relax a little bit this afternoon, you think?
Yep.
All right.
Yep. At least a little bit. But yeah.
If it makes you feel better. I didn't even take a nap yesterday.
I did.
I mean,
Yeah.
you did.
Yeah. Out on the plane.
That's. I didn't even do that, Josh. So I think you had it bad.
It's always funny to me. Like I do these trips fairly often.
Yeah, at least twice a month, once a month, something
Well,
like
this
that.
time it's been twice a month, but it's not usually that much. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's more. But it's always funny to me when I'm so exhausted that I get on the plane and I don't remember the plane taking off.
Oh man,
And-
you got to be sleeping some kind of hard.
Yeah,
I
just get woken up when the plane touches down. And
You're blessed because you can sleep anywhere. And you have slept almost anywhere, from what you tell me, right? In airports, you go to sleep and wake up.
This one was particularly funny because I woke up. I don't remember the plane taking off. I woke up when it hit the ground, but then I fell back asleep between the ground and the gate.
Did you really?
And I just remember waking up, everyone standing up to leave the plane. I was like, oh. All right, grab my bag.
And those are restful sleeps. I mean, those will help you get from.
Yeah, for me they are.
Yeah, for you they are.
Yeah.
I mean, they're power naps, I guess. I would think.
I guess I can just I'm just out, and I get rest out of it.
You're up or out.
It's not like bad sleep or good sleep.
Right,
it's just
right.
Always sleep. I don't know.
Chris, last Wednesday night of our class, kind of at the towards the beginning of your escapades this whole last 3 days. Our gun club starts at 6:30, and he and I was the only one in there at 6:30. I think Matt may have been there, maybe one other person
guy.
At 6:30. I was there. Matt was there. Josh came in. I could see he was all right, man. Maybe we won't have to teach class tonight. And then people started coming. I looked over at Josh and went, sorry.
Which I
guess we got to stay.
Yeah, because to me it's like there's pros and cons each way.
Yeah,
I enjoy teaching the Bible study because I enjoy the series we're going through, and it's always fun for me to do that. But also like this one particular night, it's like if we did have to cancel, it wouldn't be the end of the world because I have a ton of stuff to do.
Having an extra hour could have meant something,
Right.
At least a rest or pack early or whatever would have been nice. But we ended up having a good class. There weren't a lot of people there, but it was fun. And you talked about Jude again, and you'll talk about that today, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Have y'all heard of Blood, Sweat, and Tears before?
Yes.
You've heard of Blood, Sweat, and Tears. This band, of course, was big in the 70s, of course. They started together late 60s. And in this 1970, I want you to think about everybody listening and watching, think about what was going on 1969, 1970. Nixon was president. Right,
I remember
the war movement, all that. The anti-war movements, all that.
That's right. There was a lot of social discourse going on. I mean, big time. We have that now, but then it was less fragmented. I think it was just about the Vietnam War. It seemed, although there's still racial tension.
We're still in the middle of a space race with Russia.
Right.
So there's a lot of political stuff going on right there.
Women were also marching to become equal, equal rights and that kind of thing, but it was mostly concentrated on the Vietnam War. All this stuff kind of together, but
which wasn't really a war; it was a conflict.
It was a conflict, right?
Actually, technically, it's classified as a police action.
Is that right? A police action. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the men and women that were over there probably don't give two craps what it was called.
No, but that was, I think, one of the big sources of confusion about all that stuff. Because people are crying about war all the time and not realizing what the political engine is behind what's actually going on there. And I think we handled it wrong as a nation as well.
Right.
But not to sidetrack us, but I think that was a big deal. There's a lot of misunderstanding on both sides going into that one.
Well, proof positive, we're sitting here talking about it right now, and we can continue to talk about it for 2 hours, especially with you two being historians the way you all are and interested in the conflicts and what happened and everything you just got through saying. Chris is just as much interested in that and is educated, and we could talk a lot about those things. So we think about that time, right? Everybody, most people, or a lot of people more so than today, were on one side or another, right? This is the hippie side, the people that were burning their draft cards or escaping to Canada or whatever, and the other side. Now, it's probably unfair to say that because there were some people that were not supporting the war, that were getting drafted and that were going over there and were fighting, and they had short hair. But if they're over here, they have long hair and they look like hippies, right? So it's not a it's not as clear cut as that. I don't want to get into all that, but as far as this conversation goes, in 1970, Blood, Sweat, and Tears were the biggest band in the world. I say in the world because in the United States, we have the freedom to have a band that can go around the United States, become popular, and we have that freedom to do that. Not very many other places, if anywhere, that was the case, right? Mm-hmm. Rock and roll, pretty much Britain and the United States, Blood, Sweat, and Tears were number one and trending upwards. The year that they won a Grammy for Best Album, the Beatles came in second, a distant second, with Abbey Road. The album Abbey Road came in a distant second to the Blood, Sweat, and Tears second album. Yeah, that tells you how much in 1970. I mean, the Beatles came over in '64. Mm-hmm. You know, so they were well known. It wasn't like they weren't known or popular at the time. They were. So that just tells you where Blood, Sweat, and Tears were. Now, you think you would have heard about them a lot if they're that big back then. Why did I have to ask y'all the question, have you ever heard of Blood, Sweat, and Tears? It should be, of course you've heard of Blood, Sweat, and Tears, but not everybody has.
Well, that's also our ages have a lot to do with that. If you had my son sitting here who was 28 years old, he'd go, what?
Right, he would.
And that's kind of the point, is you have a knowledge of what's going on based on your age, your interests, and things like that.
Sure. You think your son would know who the Beatles are?
I don't know. My youngest one, maybe my oldest one, who's 36. I don't know that he would know exactly. He may have heard of them because of some YouTube or something, but I don't know that he would know their music specifically.
I gotcha. Well, as big as they were back then, in the early 70s, and trending upwards, something happened with this band where they kind of went away. And it hasn't really been talked about a whole lot. Do either one of y'all have any idea what I'm talking about? Okay, well, cool. Good.
This was all happening before I was born, obviously.
Yeah.
So all of my knowledge of them is after they peaked and went away.
It's people talking about them back whenever Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Do you have any idea why they kind of went away? Not a lot of
I
people
wasn't
do.
that much into music. Even I'm a slight older than you, but I wasn't that much into the music back then. My parents listened to country music, and that's kind of what I didn't so much to listen to it, but it was what I had.
Right.
You know?
Well, in the 70s, they were huge. They were a mixture of jazz and rock and roll. And that wasn't too uncommon back then, to have a mixture of horns and a rock and roll singer and drummer and things like that. But they started that trend. You know who Chicago is, the band Chicago. If you think Chicago, most people think horns and real intricate type of music that's not just a it's dynamic, it's huge, it's a great sound. Well, Blood, Sweat, and Tears started the trend of bringing horns on stage with a rock and roll band. They blended that. It was beautiful. They did a great job. It was 9 people in the band, 2 trumpets, trombone. It's funny, the lead singer played the bell and the gong at some points, and it was kind of funny. But he was it was a baritone sound. He was a beefy guy, baritone sound, very unique. But he had the gift of being able to sing low, or he'd go what, and really up high with a gravelly voice that's even popular today. So the combination of the 9 guys, they were like. They were the best in their class in what they did. And this comes from the interviews that I've seen with the documentary that they've done, they interviewed each band member and they talk about everybody else. Everybody liked each other. It was just one of those perfect storms, right? Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Well, in 1970, 71, the State Department they started earlier than that in the late 60s. They started sending people like Louis Armstrong to Yugoslavia and the East Germany and all this to kind of as a goodwill tour to say we're decent people because it was a Cold War, right?
Yeah,
we're decent people. They wanted the music to kind of pave the way. Have you all ever heard of this before?
Yeah, break the barrier.
Yeah, kind of break the barrier. But have you ever heard of the State Department doing that?
Yes.
You have? Okay.
Yeah, and I want to come back to that
good.
In a minute.
Good.
So, yeah.
That's what this story is about. So in 70, that's whenever Blood, Sweat, and Tears got involved. They were asked to do a tour by the State Department, sponsored by the State Department, to Yugoslavia and other places behind the curtain or near the curtain. And there was only one person in the band that said, this is not a good idea. He was the only political one, and that's what he called himself. He was in the politics. He said, man, this is to be sponsored by the state. I don't want to have anything to do with the State Department, he said. And you can imagine why, because at the time they were counterculture. Blood, Sweat, and Tears was counterculture, right? And all of their fans were counterculture, meaning anti-Vietnam War. We are about the music. We're about freedom. We're about all these things, and nobody believed that Nixon was doing the right thing. He got into the office by saying he's going to end the Vietnam War, but he actually elevated the Vietnam War, according to this documentary that I saw. Y'all may have a different view on that. I'm not sure. But according to this documentary, that's what happened. So people were just picking sides, and it was getting deep, and people were digging in, and the protests, and the cops came out, and Kent State. Remember whenever that happened? That's the kind of thing that was happening. Everything that happened polarized each side even more and more. State Department comes to Blood, Sweat, and Tears. We want you guys to go over there. All 8 of the members said, oh, that sounds cool, because they just played their music, and they were part of counterculture, but just because almost by default. It wasn't like they were taking sides or anything. And on top of that, the lead singer was Canadian. And he, according to this documentary and what I saw him say, he says, just like Canada, I'm cool either side. I don't care. I just want to sing and do my music.
Just want to sing, eh?
Yeah, that's right. I'm good. But one guy said, no. Okay. So let me go back to 65 or 66 again, where they were sending Louis Armstrong over and other jazz musicians. So this wasn't, when they got to Blood, Sweat, and Tears, it wasn't a new trail. They've been doing this. But they wanted to send the top rock and roll band over there, and they were the very top at the time. So the night before they were to leave, the lead singer was arrested because he was accused of holding a gun on one of his ex-girlfriends 2 years prior. Timing, whatever, dig into that. They didn't really dig into the timing. Why is this happening right now? Don't know. So he was arrested, and he was bailed out, $1,000 bailed out at 12:15 or whatever that night. So he was able to make it to the flight, and they took off, and they started the tour. Well, what happened in the tour was they saw varying levels of communism. Mm-hmm. We tend to think, I'm talking to people that I shouldn't be talking to because y'all probably know more than me. Communism, there's not one level of communism, at least back then. Mm-hmm. Yugoslavia communism wasn't the same as somewhere else, just over the border communism, right? It was different levels of communism, different levels of freedom. So they went to one place, and it was pretty cool. You know, they played to a sold out audience, and what was interesting about this is that these people, kids, teenagers, and maybe a little bit older, were conditioned to where they couldn't be demonstrative. They couldn't clap. They couldn't stand up and cheer and show their real feelings on the inside, because that's
emotion.
That's emotion, and that's inciting particular possibly a riot, something like that, right? So the scene is there's cops all the way around watching for people, you know, doing whatever they're doing. So it was real funny for me to watch this documentary, because in the audience, they looked like hippies that could be at Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, but they were just sitting down and watching.
Well, there's also a lot of like propaganda in return to, like, when we would send people over there, there's a lot of propaganda coming the other way too, because you know, communist countries were and are very wary of Western influences, and so a lot of times they don't want to respond positively.
That's right.
To something from the West being introduced, because, well, for two things, they don't want like their people to think that that's okay.
That's right.
But they also don't want, you know, the Western influence to see that there's any sort of bridge that can be crossed to join things, because the West is communism is very anti-West,
right?
Because of our freedoms, because of, you know, what we you know, our philosophy and that kind of stuff.
That's
so,
right.
You know, Vietnam War was replete with that kind of stuff too. But anyway,
You're exactly right. That was part of the documentary also. Why can't a band like Blood, Sweat, and Tears from the West come over and perform and it be a typical concert? Why? It was a real educational, everything you just got through saying, it's very educational for people to watch and go, look, everywhere's not like the United States.
Right.
You know, we think it is. Think back then, no social media and everything. We were just getting word from movies and getting word from newspaper and things of how communism is, right?
Exactly. Well, one of the big things, okay, Russia was bound to fall from communism in many respects because of the nature of the people. But people say, well, why hasn't China fallen? Well, China hasn't fallen because basically all you did was replace one tyrannical emperor government with another. The people have never known freedom. In general, they've never known anything.
So they don't know the difference.
So they don't know
hear
the difference.
About the difference.
They don't. Basically, you went from one type of tyrannical rule of an emperor and that are to another type of tyrannical rule. So nothing changed for them.
Yeah.
That's exactly the way it is.
Gotcha.
the title changed, but the, you know, what they're actually experiencing.
The system did not change.
How they could interact with the environment and other people and events and things.
Yeah.
Very restrictive. Right?
Similar to North Korea.
Yeah.
North Korea filters a ton of what goes across their border inland, because, you know, they want to portray everything other than North Korea as inferior.
Okay.
And everything that North Korea does with their, you know, whether it's their leadership or their style of government or whatever, like, this is the ultimate, you know, the leadership is to be almost worshipped as though he was a deity, and you know, anything other than that is inferior.
Right.
And so when they do actually experience true freedom, it blows their mind. Like, they didn't know that this even existed.
So, painting that picture, how big is it to have a United States band going to those places and performing in a free type of way on stage? There were still restrictions.
Right.
And some of the places they went, they had just outlawed long hair. Everybody in the band had long hair, but they were grandfathered in. It didn't apply to them. So whenever the band was in the city, it was recommended that they didn't go off by themselves. They always had their passport with them.
Right.
They didn't act a fool, in other words. You know what I mean? You can't, sure, you're free, but if you do something.
Well, the fact they even got into a lot of those countries because of their westernization,
is
in with its own right a miracle.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
you know,
right. Mm-hmm.
That's the way you got to look at it.
Yep, exactly. But State Department wanted to. It was called something. They called it. Let me look here. Music as diplomacy. It was a diplomacy move, right?
Well, even their immediate environment when they were there was often very carefully curated.
Just like it is with the Olympics these days.
Yeah, like, you know, we don't want you to go off and do your own thing.
Yep.
We want you to stay within our, you know, planned schedule for you, because within those boundaries, we can shape what you see.
That's right.
And you'll go back to your country with an opinion about our country that we've carefully designed. And
it's like Cuba right now.
Yeah.
I mean, Cuba right now, I can go to Cuba, but I'm going to be held on a resort. I'm not going to be allowed to go places. I'm not going to be, and you walk, and you camera, you know, they'll come arrest you if you walk through one of their normal stores. I've seen several YouTube videos of people, they sneak their phones or whatever into these places and film stuff that not supposed to be. And if they get caught, their phone gets taken or they get arrested.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking you don't want to get arrested in Cuba.
No.
I'm thinking you don't want to do anything.
Nope.
You know, I mean,
most countries you don't want to get arrested in,
Right.
because you're probably going to wind up spending 20 years there for, you know,
Man.
jaywalking.
well, they had restrictions like they could have cameras. Many of the band members had cameras around their neck. It was really cool, Chris, because I checked out the cameras they had. You know, Mamiya's, some of the ones that I found that we found in thrift stores. I could see they had the same ones. And I kept thinking, like we talked about last week, the meaning of an object because of where it's been. I kept thinking maybe I have that same camera that he has around his neck. Maybe Chris has that same camera. You know, I thought.
Actually, one of my sons, my youngest son, he loves to go thrifting like you do. He went to a store and had all these 35 millimeter bodies.
Oh boy!
And they were $10 a body.
Okay.
And one of them was one of the ones made for when the Russian Olympics, and it was a Russian-made 35 millimeter camera, no lens. If it had a lens, I'd have told him to bounce on it right then and there. But they issued those to people, Russians, so they could take pictures
Is that right?
of the Olympics.
Oh, sweet.
So that it was like a propaganda thing.
Okay. Yeah.
But you have this this camera, you know, where it was Soviet made.
That's pretty cool.
I wanted it, but it had no lens, and I thought, well, the fact of me maybe even finding a lens might be difficult. So I passed on it.
That's a good idea. That at least narrows it down to somewhere in a time period. You know what I mean? That's cool. Anyway, surprising we got off track talking about cameras. So some of the places they performed: Poland, Romania, Yugoslavia, and they had 3 totally different experiences at these places. Sometimes one night after another. Back over there, the countries are real close together, right? Didn't take a long time to travel from one place to another. But needless to say, these kids that came to these concerts, they've never seen anything like this before. They've heard of Blood, Sweat, and Tears, of course, because that's why they came. But they mostly came to see what freedom is like. And this documentary did such a good job that they went back and found, they called them concert goers. So some of the kids that went to these concerts, they came and found them, and now they're 60 years old, and they interviewed them and said, why did you go? What was your experience like? And sure enough, the ones that they showed anyway, about 3 of them, they showed, we wanted to see what freedom looked like. And we were hoping that this was something that was going to start spreading where we were, but it was not meant to be. All of them said that. So the fear that the government had was a realistic fear. If they're trying to conserve what they had, it was a big time deal to have Blood, Sweat, and Tears come over. It'd like me having Elvis come over and do his regular show with maybe a little bit of restrictions, which we'll talk about later on. But I'm going to watch this video, this documentary again. And anybody who's interested, I would just go to whatever smart TV you got and just search for Blood, Sweat, and Tears. There's not a lot of them. I think there's maybe 2. One of them, Chris, is one that the band hired a director and like 5 or 6 a crew of cameramen, and they did their own documentary. I haven't seen that one yet. Mm-hmm. And as they were leaving the country, I'll fast forward a little bit, as they were leaving the tour, the government, wherever they were, they did take what they thought was the video, but they ended up being able to get some of it out. They actually said they didn't take the video. The government said, you can take the video home, but it has to go through this X-ray machine. Mm-hmm. What happens to the video? It kills it. Yeah. Exactly. So they didn't say, we want that video, but we just have to X-ray it. Mm-hmm. And they knew, the band or the directors, yeah, that's right. Here's your melted film.
We don't know what happened.
The director was smart enough to know that was going to happen, so they went the night before to the hotel room, and they took it and put it in the plane or wherever. They took a lot of it and put it in a place where it didn't have to be X-rayed. I can't wait to see that video.
They didn't have SD cards back then.
You hit an SD card with enough, radiation, it'll fry it.
Right. So. Sure will.
But they'll go through X-ray machines, normal X-ray
machines, yeah.
Mine just went through 2 of them.
Did it?
Yeah, at the airport.
Is there anything that can the phones be messed up too going through there?
I mean, if you hit it hard enough.
Yeah.
But like normal X-ray machines.
Okay.
Like I have an SD card in here.
Oh, that's right.
And everything. And,
okay.
Yeah. It doesn't fry normal electronics, but
okay.
If you crank the energy up,
right,
and anything, it'll.
Okay. Well, listen, I want to make this a 2-part. Okay, I want to do the rest of it next week. But I want our listeners and viewers to think about what we've talked about. Think about the time and maybe do some research on how strong everybody's opinions were back then. We think that we're breaking new ground, but we're not. There's always been controversy in what the government does and what the people want or does. Right back then with the Vietnam War, man, it was ugly. Mm-hmm. It was ugly, and it was tragic. For whatever reason that was going on, a lot of family members were losing family members tragically. And I don't know how many people were killed, but the videos of guys and probably some women coming back in caskets with the flag over it. That's not good optics, for any government. And there was enough film back then, cameras back then, where you can go on YouTube and you can see probably hundreds to thousands of videos and pictures of Vietnam and how it was. But next week we'll talk about a little bit more about what happened whenever Blood, Sweat, and Tears were over there and some of the restrictions that the government put on them. What happened after concerts. And a slight preview is that after the concerts, after the songs, kids would wait to see if the song's over. Then they'd stand up and clap like they're at an opera, and then they'd sit back down and start watching. I thought, man, I'd love to go to a concert like that. Right. You don't have to fight with everybody around you. You know what I mean? You're just sitting, and they're just sitting watching. I thought, man, that's the way I want to enjoy music.
See, you're going to the wrong concerts. Because like when I go to like an Alison Krauss concert,
that's the way it is.
That's how it is. Everyone's just listening. And the song's
watching.
over. Everyone cheers. Da, da, da. Yep. And they start talking again. Everyone's like, everyone wants to listen to it.
That's exactly,
not participate in it.
That is exactly the way that it was described from the concert goers. We wanted to see and soak in everything that was going on, because to them that was freedom, man.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? To think about it. It's mind-boggling for me to think about that. I grew up with music like this, just being able to watch it and everything. Not all people have.
Why do you think that when it comes to diplomacy, why do you think that America chose to send music over?
What Louis Armstrong said, it's a good question. What Louis Armstrong said is we speak the world's language. Music is the world's love language or diplomacy language, whatever you want to say it. Everybody can sit and enjoy any song. It may not be your type of song. I don't really like Japanese music, but I can appreciate, and I hear a lot of it. I can appreciate some of the music. Some of it.
Donna, no, you don't appreciate Japanese. Okay.
Donna and I have a lot of laughs over
This isn't new news.
No,
for,
this
right?
is not. No. Donna will record something and let me see it if she thinks I think it is entertaining, and it's funny. It's funny, man. They are 50 years behind. I have to ask Donna, is this current? A boy band, Japanese people with rhinestone suits on. That's current. That's current stuff, and they are getting to it, man.
Yeah,
it's awesome. It's funny, but anyway, I appreciate, especially the historic Japanese music of a long time ago. The ding 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 ding. You know what I mean? I can appreciate that type of instrument playing.
Yeah.
Because they have something that's a huge guitar with a neck that's this big, and they're just plucking it like that. I can appreciate that. I don't like the way it sounds, but I can appreciate that. Anyway.
Well, historically, if you think about it, we have a guitar.
Yeah.
We have different instruments, but in a way, a lot of your instruments are the same. We have some type of stringed instrument.
Yeah.
Japanese instrument has this little tiny box with a 9-foot looking thing, and
Yeah.
they play it like you
Same
have a
deal.
guitar, but it's a similar design.
Yeah.
Produces different sounds.
Right.
And that all comes from the culture.
Yeah, that's right.
That's where you're at.
That's what I mean. I can appreciate it. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to buy the CD, best of Japanese, whatever, boy bands,
I'm offended now.
Well, it's interesting that you say that this is the world's language, because what like embedded itself into my mind is an interesting topic to come back to. Is the idea of music for diplomacy, and then you adding on to it that Louis Armstrong said that music is the world's language, because Louis Armstrong is kind of a link in these two ideas, and where this is going, when you look out into space and you start thinking about the possibility of something else out there, this is something that. We mentioned the space program in the late 70s, how we're competing with Russia to get to the moon and, put stuff out into space. Well, back in 1977, we launched the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 space probes. And one of the big things in the news last couple days is Voyager 1. Both of these are still operational, by the way.
Okay.
And they're the farthest man-made things out in space right now. They've both crossed over into interstellar space, which means they've left the solar system. Voyager 1 is the farthest. It reached that boundary of it's one light day away from Earth, which means if we beam a signal out to it, it takes an entire day for it to reach, traveling at the speed of light to reach that probe.
That's a far piece out there.
It's a far piece out there. But both the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 probes have attached to their sides I think it's made out of copper, a copper record.
No, they're gold.
They're gold? Oh, okay. They're gold.
I love that Chris knows that.
Right? And I want to disagree with him, but I'm not going to, because you're probably right.
We'll research. There you go.
Look it up. So
I wouldn't even know how to look that. Chat GPT, what's that thing on the outside of that thing? What's it made of?
Well, see, because gold would make sense because it doesn't corrode, but it's also super soft, so how would you play it?
Okay.
So that's what's going on in my mind. Anyway, so on these records, which that was the technology of the day of how to play music or audio or whatever.
We're both correct. It is gold-plated copper.
Good gracious. Not very often two people are
with
correct.
With our powers combined.
That's cool.
Gold-plated copper, 12 inches.
That makes sense. All right, so...
that's what I was going to say. I just didn't want to show y'all up.
Didn't want to embarrass us. Let them have their thing.
That's right. That's fine. Let them think they know.
Well, so there's different things on this record. The content of this record was agreed upon by a joint committee led by Carl Sagan. He was like the nerd of the day.
Yeah.
And so like if this probe, which is going to be launched out into interstellar space, is ever going to encounter something, what do we want them to know about us? And how do we even communicate that? And a large swath of the data on this record was our music.
Yes.
Most of it was like, and I'm looking at a list here, Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, Stravinsky, but it also included music by Guan Pingu, I don't know who that is, Blind Willie Johnson, Louis Armstrong, Chuck Berry, all these different people. There, not just American artists, obviously. Electronic composer Laurie Spiegel, a guy named Valya Balkanska, Kamil Jalilov. So I'm assuming those are, not American artists.
Yeah.
But anyway, and then in addition to that, there was just a body of sounds, like the sound of footsteps, the sound of different people saying, like hello from Earth or something like that, and like a bunch of different languages, and the sounds of adult voices, the sound of children's voices, and animal noises and insect noises, but also there was like images embedded in.
Oh yeah.
So it wasn't just communicating audio information, but visual information too. And there's all these different pictures that are encoded in the ridges of this record, and one image that was purely for calibration. So, interpret this, and that will give you the ability to interpret these properly. And it was all just about like under the assumption that whatever it encounters is going to be peaceful.
Yeah,
right. Like, here's what we're all about. Here's where we're located.
We hope it's okay to give you this information.
Yeah, because there's also information about like where our solar system is, and what where this thing originated from in that solar system. All that kind of stuff, and then some mathematical information to show like, regardless of what intelligent race of things it encounters, everyone's going to have the same rules of math because they're universal. So here's some math stuff that once you interpret that, it gives you the ability to interpret all this other stuff.
My goodness gracious.
And but I just think it's interesting how when we're going to encounter another country, we send music.
Yeah.
When we're going to encounter another world, potentially, we send music. And under the assumption that this isn't just the language of the world, but this is potentially the language of the universe.
What else?
Well, it is in a way. Okay. What is music?
It's very mathematical.
It's mathematical.
Mathematical.
Mathematical is a universal language.
Right.
1 + 1 is going to equal 2, no matter where you're at, unless you have some kind of weird, mental
But
thing.
it's mathematical information that's superimposed over an emotional message. And so it's the blend of the two, which is, I think, why it works so well as a message of a language of diplomacy.
What was the professor that was in the wheelchair? My brain is
Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking.
Yeah.
Stephen Hawking was highly opposed to sending this information out there.
Was he?
Yes, because he's like, what are we inviting?
Right.
It's a fair question.
Again,
we even kind of thought about that. Whenever you indicated that, I mean, is it okay to do this?
Or hey, hi, we're here on Earth.
Yeah.
Here's
our secrets.
And then all of a sudden, you got Independence Day show up, and and they're light years ahead of us, or whatever, in technology. And
our planet has gold and copper.
Yeah, they have gold and they have copper.
If nothing else, that's what we're telling them.
And they have traces of moisture because whatever the weird things.
Here's some music to listen to while you're coming down to get us
to extract our resources.
Well, there's two things that I know of that can, whenever you're talking about how mathematics or emotion wrapped in mathematics, two things I think of that can change a person's emotion almost immediately. That's music and a photo / video. Those two things I've seen. I think we've all seen. I've seen somebody look at one of my photos and they immediately came to tears. That spoke to me huge, and it wasn't because it was a really good photo. It really wasn't. It was the content.
Yeah.
But I was very intentional about making that content for this person. It was my sister-in-law, Hope, looking at her daughter on her wedding day, sitting next to Hope's mother, embracing. You know that picture, and that's her wedding day. She was embracing her grandmother, who is blind and was blind at the time. But the faces on both of them is what I captured, and that was something that I did very intentionally. I showed her that picture, and she immediately came to tears. And she's not a really highly emotional person. She'll say that to yourself. But I thought, man, if a picture can do that, that's some powerful stuff.
Right.
And a song, if you take that, you take a song itself. But if you take a song and combine it with a picture, forget it. It'll make anybody cry.
Yeah.
You know, commercials that make grown men cry.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's a highly emotional thing. So music being that universal language, what else would we send? You know, what else could we send around the world that would have the same effect? I don't know. You know, that's kind of innocent, but yet it's still showing the freedom. I'm not sure if there was any other solution.
Look at music though. We want to inspire calm. We turn on video, you know, soft jazz, soft this, soft that.
Right.
You want to inspire. You go to a military march, makes you want to get up and march across. You know, and they use music to inspire people, and have since they were banging rocks together in the cage.
Yeah, sure.
You know, okay, hey, we're banging bones. It makes one, you know, that kind of stuff. It all depends on how you assemble the mathematics.
It can be done very intentional to do very intentional things.
Yeah.
That's
Even like when you watch any movie, watch it with or without the music. The music is what drives. It's almost like
a huge part of it.
Yeah, like this is what we want the audience to feel during this scene. So we'll play the music that induces that emotion. Because there's YouTube videos where people like, you know, what if, you know, this Disney movie was, you know, had a different soundtrack and it was a horror film. You know,
right. Pink Floyd and the what's that? Yep, Follow the Yellow Brick Road.
Oh,
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz. There's a. I didn't mean to cut you off, but there's an album of Pink Floyd you can play at the very beginning of Wizard of Oz, and it syncs the whole time. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's absolutely
like
amazing.
You can change like the exact same scene, like no changes to it whatsoever. Yeah. You change the music, and it changes the mood of that scene.
That's right.
I think that's really amazing.
It is. Even stupid things like sitcoms do that. I've done that a lot. That's very wise thinking, Josh. Because if you catch on to that, it's hard not to hear that.
Right.
But you can, if you didn't catch on to it, it can be totally subconscious, and you're not even thinking about it.
We do that inadvertently in churches too. Because whether it's on purpose or not, we've had conversations with Jeremy, the worship leader of the church we go to, about like, you know, when the worship service starts, it's very lively music, fast rhythm, loud, you know, the whole production.
It's a celebration.
Yeah, and it kind of like it arcs up.
Yeah.
And then it slowly brings everything down to like the last song right before the sermon. Yeah. Is a slow song that really has a long taper off.
More of a personal praise
type
of music.
And you know, the lights are kind of dimming, and it ends with a quiet, like, introductory prayer. It's quiet. The pastor comes up and starts preaching. It's like the music is what forms our attitude going into the sermon.
Yeah.
And I wrestled with, you know, that was what's supposed to be done or not, however you want it.
It's very intentional.
Yeah, it's very intentional, right? It's very
intentional.
intentional. And I remember even when I was younger, being involved in a worship team as a drummer, noticing that's what we're doing as well. Is it's like we're bringing the emotion to like a maximum strain, a maximum stress, and then we're bringing it back and like forming it into the attitude that's most desirable going into that message. And I think it's interesting looking at not just that what we do in churches today, but even in the Old Testament. Like the Psalms has a whole series of Psalms that it calls Songs of Ascent. Like as you were walking towards the temple to offer sacrifices or whatever, these were the Psalms that as you're walking that road and as your elevation is getting higher and higher, as you walk up the mountain towards the temple, these songs of ascent were things that you started singing at the base of the mountain, and you sing these as you get closer and closer. And it's really neat listening to the theme of those songs because it's doing the same thing. It's like preparing your heart to start at the base of the mountain and climb that and eventually enter the grounds of the temple.
Music was being used in a good way, even way back then.
Right.
So it's that there's no comparison to it. I don't think, it's and it can be beautiful too, but it can bring you to an emotion really, really quick.
Yes.
It take you out or put you in an emotion. I'll close with this because we've been on it for a while. This is the close of part 1 of Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I made a strange observation last night whenever Louis Armstrong was being interviewed before he was going over to Yugoslavia and other places. His trumpet came out and it went like this, right? Do y'all remember that? It went like this. Then that was his unique way, his unique trumpet. He was playing it, but before he was even playing it, he was being interviewed by the State Department representative and a news reporter. And the news reporter said, "So what do you think about going over there?" And he answered the question just like we just got through. It's a universal language. But while he was talking, I noticed right here in his neck, every time he would make a certain sound, boom, it would puff, boom, noticeably. Now this is black and white, not the best quality. And I'm sitting, 6 feet away from the TV, and I could still see his neck going boom. And I thought, that is exactly why he can do the things. He's either developed that was a gift from God, or both. Nobody else that I know of, I've ever seen them puff up like almost, an inch on either side.
Right.
And if you hear him playing, sometimes he'll puff and then he'll go, tee, just a little sound, but it will last forever.
Yep.
And he has that gift to be able to do that. And whenever he's playing, you'll see it puff up. But to see it whenever he's talking, it's like, man, this guy, he was made to play this trumpet just the way he is playing it.
It's funny too, because if I understand it correctly, the technique that he used to play the trumpet was considered incorrect.
Probably was.
But he developed it to a point where it became his signature style.
Do you know anything specific about that? What he was doing? Any technical? I'd like to look that up.
Well, I think it was specifically that he would pressurize all this stuff
instead of in his cheeks.
Yeah, because trumpet players don't do this. It's all from the lungs.
Right. Gotcha.
And,
okay.
But kind of like how if you're trained to play classical guitar, you sit a certain way, your legs are propped a certain way, and your guitar is at a certain angle.
Okay.
To do everything quote unquote the right way.
Right. Gotcha.
But then you look at like just amazing guitarists like Chet Atkins or
Jimi Hendrix played it upside down.
Yeah, he played
with his thumb going over the top of it.
Yeah, he played a right-handed Fender Stratocaster, left-handed, right?
Yep.
And
tell me he ain't good, brother.
Right. And all of these people are like Slash, who plays his guitar way like down around his knees or something, And all of them like horrible form, but that's the technique that they've developed for their specific style. And it kind of goes to show you, like, there's not really any wrong form,
right,
in all these things. It's what sound and emotion or whatever you're trying to evoke from this particular instrument.
You know, in photography, and I'll close with this, Chris and I always teach that you learn the correct way of doing it, and then you break the rules.
Right.
You learn how to do technically correct, and only by knowing the technically correct way of doing it will you know how to break the rules to your advantage.
Right.
You might luck up on a technique or something, but if you know the rules, okay, then break them. All right. For example, just the rule of thirds, where you want to put a person, your subject, and it's like you draw a tic-tac-toe in the screen and you put your subjects on one of the points. Well, that's good. We want to learn to do that. But if you're doing a horror show, you want to drop it, or you want to tilt it, or another one is, if you're doing the rule of thirds, you put the face on the looking at the screen. You put the face on the right side, looking left. If you're looking left, you want room on the left, and the subject is on the right. Unless it's a horror flick. If it's a horror flick, you do it backwards. You put the face all the way over to the right, where there's not much room where they're looking. Why? Because it gives you that sense somebody might be coming up behind you.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool? Just that little bit of manipulation.
Hacking the subconscious.
Yep, hacking the subconscious. If you watch a horror flick, you'll see that every time.
Right.
We go back to photography class. Maybe you'll let me film a horror movie.
Sure. Absolutely. You've been wanting to do that for the longest time. That'd be fun. Anyway, our conversation went a long way on that, but I think it was good. But I'll close with the music there, Josh, and we'll do Blood, Sweat, and Tears 2 next time.
Okay. And I'm going to keep mine quick because we have gone. We don't have a clock.
You're an hour and.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, okay. So yeah, this will be really quick, just to kind of bring you up to speed about what we've been doing in Jude over the last week. So Jude, he gives everyone this warning about the people that are creeping into the church unawares, who are changing or basically perverting the gospel, making it into something about themselves, like narcissism, right?
Yeah.
And he gives all of these examples from the Old Testament, which we've gone over. You know, the things like the story about Korah and them, trying to hack the priesthood or obtain priesthood themselves, and eventually get swallowed by the earth, or how Cain and his sacrifice wasn't accepted, or or Balaam, who was hired to, who basically. Gave into the temptation of financial gain and took a job to curse God's people. Things like that. You know, he goes through the Old Testament and gives a lot of these examples. And then he ends it with a reminder that we talked about last week, that Enoch, who was the seventh generation from Adam, prophesied about these people. You know, this is someone who lived before the flood, thousands of years before the first coming of Christ, prophesied that after the second coming of Christ, that he would return with 10,000s of his saints and would execute judgment on these ungodly, on all these ungodly people. So this concept, Jude was saying, is like, this has been something that God has warned you about since the absolute beginning of everything. And so for thousands of years, there's been a responsibility on God's people to stand firm, to contend for the faith, and make sure that the things of God remain the things of God, and don't get corrupted by these worldly ideas and philosophies and things like that. And mainly because, one, it corrupts the pure, but because there's judgment planned for these the originators of these corruption. And in that prophecy that he shared, that Enoch was talking about that whole time, He said, he told you that there should be mockers in the last time who should walk after their own ungodly lusts. These be they who separate themselves, sensual, having not the Spirit. But ye, beloved, building up yourselves on your most holy faith, praying in the Holy Ghost, keep yourselves in the love of God, looking for the mercy of our Lord Jesus Christ unto eternal life. And he reminds us that this wasn't just a warning that originated back in old times. Like, we've gone through all these examples of the Old Testament, but also the apostles since the first coming of Christ have been warning you even more that this is going to happen. And we went through examples of like 2 Peter and 1st and 2nd Timothy and Acts, where the apostles in the New Testament were warning the same things. And a lot of them even invoked a lot of examples from the Old Testament. Like, there's been this corrupting influence ever since the beginning that keeps trying to corrupt from the inside and from the out. And we have all of this stuff like, the sword of the armor of God, which, helps us in this battle against spiritual wickedness in high places and all this stuff. But there's another presence of this corruption that's originating from inside of our own camp, inside of our own Christian circles, that we need to be aware of. And these were also warned by the apostles as well. And, how they'll be mockers and walking after their own godly lusts. And so at the beginning of Jude, he says, contend for the faith. And at the end of Jude, where we're getting, he starts to go into a little bit of detail about how you contend for the faith. You build up yourselves in your most holy faith, praying, keeping yourselves in the love of God. And, those are very nice sounding phrases in a general sense. But like, what does that mean? Feet on the ground type of advice. Like, how do you build yourself up in your faith? How do you keep yourself in the love of God? That phrase, just taken out of context like that, seems to imply like there's something that we need to do to keep God loving us. That's not what it's saying. It's saying live your life in a way where you are constantly aware of the love of God. Live your life in a way where your faith is being constantly strengthened. And so how do you do that? And that kind of like everyone's music interest is different. Everyone's method of doing those things is going to be different as well. And we talked about some examples last week. We talked, or this past Wednesday. For me personally, how do I continue to build my faith? How do I keep myself in love of God? Well, I try to make it a point to spend some time in God's Word every day. And that doesn't necessarily mean I'm sitting down in the quiet with my Bible open in front of me. Sometimes it means I'm driving down the road, listening to something on a Bible podcast on Spotify, or
probably most of the time that's what you're doing.
Yeah, most of the time
your life just isn't. I mean, who can sit down and do that these days?
Yeah, I don't really have an opportunity to sit down at any point,
right,
and just do one thing.
You could not sleep, perhaps.
True, and I did that during graduate school first time, but you can only sustain that for so long.
Right.
But all of us have these little spots in our lives where we might be doing something that doesn't require brain activity, and so we can be using that time to, whether it's listening to music that orients us closer to God, whether we're listening to some podcast that's a Bible study, or streaming something on YouTube that's that orients us towards God. Yeah. Like, we all have those little spots in our lives where we can fill that in, because we need to be contending for the faith. And one of the biggest failures of the modern, I would say, American church right now is we've not done ourselves any favors in this area, because we keep everything at like Christianity 101. Yeah. There's very little depth in a lot of churches, because we just focus on what's the easy 45-minute sermon package that you can just kind of like one and done, and you're there. And there's not a lot of depth there. There's not any mechanism for digging into Scripture or going through Scripture methodically and saying not just what one or two verses say, but what the context says, what these people in Scripture were struggling with in their society, or the spiritual battles that they were building. Mm-hmm. And so we're not building up our own faith. We're not giving ourselves any tools to where we can look at these really difficult issues that we face in society and politics and in government, or in conversations with our fellow workers or whatever. These difficult questions that the Bible does address, but it doesn't address in the form of one verse, taken extracted out of its context and giving us direct advice. It's dealt with over the entire arc of Scripture. And so for me, that was one of the things I wanted to stress about building up your faith, keeping yourselves in the love of God, is we have to be finding a way in our lives that puts us deeper into communication with God, whether it's through prayer or whether it's through navigating His Word, or any number of things. We have to have that component in our lives if we're going to be able to effectively contend for the faith. Interesting, Josh. We can close with this. Before we started recording, we talked about Paul Harvey. Mm-hmm. So talk quickly about how that influenced you. Oh, okay. Because it reminded me what you just got through saying. Somehow, somehow we need to keep thinking about him. Somehow, how did that help you? Right. So we were talking about Paul Harvey, and Paul Harvey, he's long since passed away, but he used to have this radio show that I grew up listening to with my dad. It was usually a 2-part show. In the afternoon, it was Paul Harvey News and Comments. And then later in the evening, it was Paul Harvey and the rest of the story. And the rest of the story was like the method that he used to communicate, to communicate like deeper concepts about famous people or historically significant events or whatever. He would go in and he would tell a deeper version of that gives information that not a lot of people know. It was the rest of the story, and that really influenced me about how I study Scripture and how I share my research with other people, like teaching in Bible studies or whatever. It's like here's the surface stuff that we usually learn in our typical like Sunday school setting or whatever. But if we really want to dig deep into it, let's dig down and find the rest of the story. Why did this happen this way instead of another way? Why was it that Jesus said this thing at this precise location? Like, what else happened at this location that made that statement significant to be said right there? Mm-hmm. That kind of stuff is like, what is the rest of the story? Because when you know the rest of the story, especially in Scripture, it really starts to strengthen your faith that like there was more going on than just the words in this verse. There was spiritual battle waging behind the scenes in this very instant at this very spot. Right. And it serves to strengthen our faith when we know that. The only way to do that is really to dig in, to dig into it. I think of Paul on the way to Damascus. I think most people know that story about whenever he was saved, but there's more to that story. Like, where was he in the past? Where is he in the future? And I always thought of that story as being, it kind of changed the way I think about people that I strongly oppose, especially whenever I was doing ministry and I was trying to hire people or get people to come on to help with the ministry. Well, I looked for people that were really, really busy all the time, because if this is important to them, they'll make this part of that really, really busy part instead of thinking they're too busy to do this. No, I want them to put something else off the plate and bring this on the plate. With Paul, man, he was so fervent about killing Christians, but whenever he got on the other side, he was just as fervent about saving people. So that attitude can be changed with God's grace. Yeah. So anyway, thank you very much, sir. Yep. Appreciate that. Thanks, Chris. This was a fun one.
This was a fun one. I'm glad that y'all got a little bit interested in Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I brought a little history in it and got y'all interested in it. I think you'll enjoy what happens next time for sure.
All right.
Donna, I love you, and we'll see y'all next week. Thanks. Bye.